We have our draft November 12, 2013 planning board minutes in the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second? Any corrections, deletions, additions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you.
Okay, we have a public hearing tonight for Trailside Major 9-lot subdivision located on Glendale Avenue, New Hartford. It's an amendment to final. The developer is Rob Kessler and Associates, and the zoning is medium-density residential.
Chris, could you just move that maybe around the corner so the residents can see that? Maybe if we turn a chair around, or if you have something over there, turn that chair around just so it's facing them, and
No, that'd be too high.
See everybody?
at least they can have a view of what it is we're talking about. And with that, I will open the public hearing and just ask that you state your name and address so we have that, and then we'll take your comments. Is there anyone who would like to speak this evening? Yes, sir.
Yes, my name is Patrick Finio. I live on 6 Liberty Ave, Whitesboro. Of course, it's in the town of Hartford. The address is Whitesboro. I'm not here to speak against building. I don't have any problem with them building the housing. What I'm concerned about is the water problem, okay? I have a major water problem at 6 Liberty Ave. This is 3 times now in the last 2.5 years that the wetlands is flooded from excessive water being in there, and it's come across the Middle Settlement Road and came down the right down the roadway of Liberty Ave, which then comes across my property and totally, if I didn't catch it in time, would totally flood me out. And eventually it's going to flood me out because they keep adding more and more buildings and they're not doing anything with the water except adding more pipes to the same area that can't handle the water now. Like I said, I don't have any problem with them building the buildings. What I do have a problem with is what is the town of New Hartford and Oneida County going to do about the water problem? Because the water problem is getting worse. It's not getting better, and it's not going to get any better. The holding ponds up there are totally full. They don't take anywhere near the water they used to take, which belongs to Bosse's and Lowe's and whoever else has built them. And also, when I walk up 840 Trail, this also added to some of our problems because they built it up, which now holds all the water in that one wetlands. And when I walk up 840 Trails, I see a bunch of more pipes coming down into this wetland from Whitesboro. You know, we're at the lower end of Whitestown, so you know the water comes down to us. And the pipe coming across underneath Middle Settlement is far too small, and the ditch on the other side of Middle Settlement, which runs down below my property, is totally almost filled in. That has to be redug all the way down. It should be dug all the way down past the almost down to Walmart because it's totally plugged up. So I have no problem with the plantings. I have no problem with the production of new homes and more jobs, but I do have a problem with the water, and I totally expect to hold the town and the county accountable for any more flooding that I get. Because eventually the water's not going to be deferred and it's going to hit my house directly, and I'm going to be in big trouble with foundation and a lot of damage. And I have some new neighbors that just bought brand new homes, and one of them is here and one of them isn't here because they really didn't realize what the problem was and wasn't notified.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Alan, come join us for the last
That
time.
was for purposes of the record. You're going to put how many photographs and when they were taken or if they're dated?
The photographs were taken at the end of the last storm that we had at the end of June. I believe, I don't know the exact date, but it was
June.
when the Mud Creek and all those was all flooded over. That was the last time, and it has flooded 2 times before that. But I thought the first time was kind of a fluke. I mean, I've lived in that property now for 67 years, okay? And I have never, ever seen the water come down Liberty Ave. like it's come down in the last, it's come down now 3 times in the last year and a half.
Thank you. Yes, Ed?
Members of the board came in here late, but Mrs. Lawrence had brought to my attention a letter signed by Delta Engineer Architects and Land Surveys dated November 4th, 2013, addressed to Mr. Robert Kessler, and I believe each member of the board here has a copy of this, and it discusses the subdivision as presented before the board, and they are basically or essentially identifying some critical issues here, and I asked the board to take note of these comments that have been put forth by the engineer Aaron P. Falkenmeyer, project manager, and furthermore, as the planning board, as the town is well aware, there's substantial flooding issues throughout the town. Middle Selden is just a small portion of it, but I think it would be in the board's best interest to seriously consider the facts in this matter and the residents who have some great concerns with respect to ongoing building. We also have that issue in back of Walmart. We have all this land being taken away from Mother Nature in terms of the ability to stop this runoff, and they have, I think it's a 200 unit, it's a huge building there, and Mother Nature can only handle so much water. So I asked the board to exercise their due diligence as they have in the past and take into consideration every fact that's presented before them. Thank you.
Thank you. Someone else like to speak, please? Anybody? Well, thank you for your comments, Don, and I'll look one last time. Then I'll close the public hearing, and the rest of this will be dealt with at the board level. Thank you very much for coming. Chris, we're going to start with you. Well, actually, Joe, before we get over to the engineer on this. This subdivision, as it's laid out, meets all the town subdivision rules and regulations as to the lot size, the roads, etc. And Rick, you've reviewed this as far as the roads are concerned, and are satisfied with the plans regarding what will be town roads.
Yes, I am.
Now, when we get over to this water issue on this land, Chris, will you take us through what the developer's doing? Well, I'm sorry, Herb, could you just briefly address SECRA and this site and what it is the developer would be required to do and what the developer may have done that then Chris will get into to address those concerns?
Sure. This had previously been sent out for review. The developer is required to deal with any on-site stormwater issues that he may be causing or creating. With regard to off-site issues, if he is not contributing to those, there is no requirement that he go any further. In reading the law, it says if a subdivision plat complies with all applicable regulations, it may not be rejected because of concerns regarding its effect on the neighborhood, unless objective evidence, usually in the form of expert testimony or reports, demonstrate the nature and extent of the asserted problems. Here the issue, I believe, and Chris will help us, would be are they contributing any additional stormwater flow off of their site? My understanding is, and I don't know this for a fact, is that there has been a problem over there, but that the problem may originate in Whitestown, cross over this property, and then be discharged without this property contributing any additional stormwater problems. My understanding further is that the developer has agreed to dedicate a portion of this subdivision to stormwater detention. I know that Chris has looked at this in detail, so that's going to be the key issue.
And under SECRA, the developer on this parcel, the law requires that once developed, the stormwater which goes through the parcel goes through at the same rate that it does in its natural
Not being
state.
increased, yes.
Okay, Chris.
So everything he said is correct. When we reviewed this a year ago, the simple concept is whatever the pre-existing flows are, your post-development flows cannot exceed that.
As it goes across this parcel.
Well, yeah, whatever falls, correct, whatever falls onto that site, when you look at flow rates and volume, you gotta make sure that it's at least equal to or less. This is a unique situation because he is less than 5 acres of development, and in that category, they don't necessarily need to have a stormwater detention basin, as Herb pointed out. During the review and at the time they were doing their drainage study, we, meaning the board and others, took it and said, we want to go one step further. Rob did. He put in a detention basin, as we can see down here.
Could you point it out for the board
Yep,
as well,
yep.
please?
So if you look at this lower area of the site, you have all the lots bordering Whitestown, and you have a detention basin down in this area, which outfalls to the left.
Could you also show it to the residents,
definitely,
please?
yep.
Yeah.
So, I guess in terms of going above and beyond, I mean, that's probably the major point that I can point to say that in trying to not cause an increased situation from what we heard some comments on, you know, that's probably the biggest feature of the site that does that. All the water, as was also pointed out, does come from Whitestown, drains through the site, and it did previously that exact thing prior to any development. There was a funnel in effect both from this Bartlett Drive right down into the wetland, as there was through some backyards down to the wetland. So what we have done is essentially taken one of those flow-throughs and actually now we collect it in that detention basin, hold on to it, and during the large flows, the big storms like we had in June, now that detention basin will build up, store that water, and then release it slowly. So I guess in our opinion, they did go above and beyond, and they did better the situation to maybe a minor degree compared to the rest of that drainage basin.
And Rick, on these detention basins, whose responsibility is it to maintain them?
Once the developer's done and the town takes them over, we just took one over up in Jewel Ridge. We maintain them, we do periodically maintenance of them, and so it does get turned over. And there should be an easement to it so we can get to it easily and get it cleaned if need be.
And the detention basins referenced in the public comments, are those within the town of Hartford's authority, or BOCES, for example?
That's in BOCES complex.
Well, so we don't digress, I would just ask you if you could contact them, and maybe we should be doing a review in that area, so how these things are being maintained, because if they're not working properly, what's the point? Also on that ditch, is that a town of New Hartford ditch, or a county ditch, or whose ditch is that was referenced?
Well, it comes from the county, it goes, this wetland goes under the county road, comes out of the county road, and it goes along the old railroad track bed, and again, goes down behind Walmart.
Well, maybe we could just check that out and
Well,
see
yes.
whose responsibility it would be to clear that out. I also point out that all this off-site, these off-site issues come under GEIS, don't they, Herb?
No, this is residential.
No, I know on this residential is exempt from the fees and
Right, but
mitigation.
mitigation fees
But all these
could be used.
outside areas that
It
we're
is
talking about
within the
beyond
area.
this development is within our.
It is within the study.
So there are funds that are being generated to deal with stormwater management.
Yes.
So maybe we should be asking the town board to take a look at how we're dealing with these issues in that area of the town, as well as sending these comments over to, is there still a stormwater committee? I don't know.
I don't believe that that's been operational.
Liz's committee is done?
No, it's not operational.
Maybe that's something that should be considered, I don't know. Well, I'd like these comments at least to go to the town board, Dory, so that they see that these issues continue, especially the fact that the whole purpose of the GIS was to get involved with the cumulative development's impact on these kinds of issues, stormwater management being a key one of those issues. Any comments or questions from board members regarding this? Yes.
Chris, what happens when that retention pond is full?
There is a spillover.
And at that point, you're no longer retaining on-site water, then, are you?
Correct. The purpose of the detention pond is to really take that first flush of water and maintain it for a period of time until you can let it out slowly. You're always going to have a storm that's big enough to overtop any detention pond, or that's why you have spillways. Same thing that happens down the Middle Southern Road. You know, you have an overland path for flow.
Mhm.
So, at some degree, you're going to have some overflow.
Yes, Peggy?
I walked that trail And one of the things that I found very interesting was there's another pond over on the other side of the trail. The pipes that go under the trail really maybe could stand some maintenance and some work to alleviate the way they go through. Because I had been there after a rain, and it was a pretty substantial flow into the quote retention pond. So I think what should be done is a lot more attention to this. This was one of the comments that I asked about way back when we first looked at this too.
This site or the trail?
Site,
The site, okay.
Anything else, Peggy?
no, because there was a problem there that was foreseeable.
Can I ask you a question?
Well, generally not, but go ahead. We
I'm
want to make sure you guys,
just
Rob, your
curious.
attorney's here, you sure she wants you to ask it?
It's not gonna be bad, trust me. You're saying that my site?
oh, I forget, you're the developer, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
You're saying that my site is retaining water and there's a pond there?
No, I'm saying that on the other side of the.
On the trail, yeah, along the side, yeah, because that's where all the water
And so the
comes from.
pipes go through, and there is substantial water flow through those pipes
Yeah.
that may be contributing a lot to that problem.
Okay.
And as you may remember, this was something I was concerned about.
Yeah, okay, I just wanted to clarify that.
Any, sorry about that. Any other comments or questions from board members?
I have a couple. Chris, did you, because I don't see it in the minutes, and maybe you weren't tasked with taking a look, were you tasked with taking a look at this project?
No.
You
I mean,
weren't?
well, B&L was. We worked with the town, but I was not here back when we reviewed this.
Okay, because that was
2012.
before, I think, the June storm
Correct,
that happened.
correct.
Um,
Well, it had already been approved in 2012.
Right. Did whoever from DNR, did they isolate that there were any stormwater problems? Because I know I asked several times, it was in our board member packets, and we never really got an answer to that.
No, I mean, from what I could see from looking back at the information, there was nothing that, what is technically needed, but is outside the scope of this development, is a drainage basin report coming from that, using that crossing Middle Settlement Road as the point.
Right.
What comes down from there, I've heard Bosse's mentioned, I've heard Whitestown and Whitesboro mentioned. I mean, there's a lot of land that contributes to that runoff into that wetland, and it's all coming down to that conduit under the road. And that's ultimately where this is headed. And Rob, being a small piece of that, you know, I think it's under the spotlight at this point because, you know, we're here in front of you, but there's a lot of stuff that does contribute to that. Some of that being what's been pointed out.
Because there's
It's
a pond on
it's
the
close to
other side.
200 acres.
Well, it's hitting critical point at this point.
Well, and
So I didn't find anything in everything that I looked at going back to the beginning of 2012 that looked at or pointed out problems.
This letter from Delta, as I read it, I mean, I know that Delta is Kessler's engineer. I'm a little confused by the letter. So maybe you could.
Yeah, the letter came really because as this was gaining some spotlight, we asked the engineer to take a couple look at a few things. One being, what could be done on site to help alleviate the problem that was brought up? Knowing that we're flowing water through the site, is there anything we could do to capture that water rather than do the flow through? Can we use some of the green space? That was the first question. The answer was no, because it's actually uphill from where the water comes from Whitestown. So the available storage would be very minimal. Groundwater being an issue, but obviously going uphill is the other issue. You also have DEC wetland, which was one of the reasons why it is green space, but it severely limits that green space because there is a DEC wetland over there that can't be touched. And it has some buffers that have to do with it. The other thing is what the pre-existing drain through look like compared to the post. Meaning now we're, and I'll show everyone, Now we're coming down from Whitestown, we're going into culverts, and then we're funneling this down to an outlet over here. What did that look like beforehand? Did it just go, and I'll show everyone back here, so did it just go spread out onto the ground and slowly trickle and then make its way to the wetland, which, as we know, if it perks, it's gonna be less water that goes in the wetland. Well, that wasn't the case. So to point that out was that, well, the pre-existing condition and the post-existing condition are kind of the same. So there's not gonna be any more water in that effect coming from Whitestown into the wetland. So it was really, what can we do now? And I think the purpose of that was to, we've done really what we can do at this point with the land that's there.
Right,
And
so
that was their response to us, I guess.
So when they say in the last paragraph, it talks about detention on the site is being explored by the town, but that's not that detention pond.
No, that's not this one.
It's the one you were just talking about,
Correct.
and there's minimal land, so minimal impact if you put one there.
Absolutely, yep.
Um,
That would all be land, just so everyone can see, that would all be land that's off this page. There's actually 4 acres, 5 acres, that goes this direction. But as you can see, as soon as you step into the woods there, you've got wetland, and it's all uphill of this, so you can't get to it.
Even though it's not part of this project, this whole thing going down to Walmart and the going under the road, have you looked at any of that? Have you gone there and walked it?
We've walked it, I actually walked it as part of the senior housing. That's the bigger development that's over there by 840. And it does need some maintenance. The problem with swales and drainage areas like that is when they get roots, trees, whatever growth in there, it slows the water down. You slow the water down, you back it up, and now you're backing up that culvert. That culvert's backing up the rest of the wetland, and now you can't get stuff out. It's a common factor throughout the town, as Rick will attest to. Getting in there and cleaning that out is probably the first line of action.
So just isolating who owns the property, whose responsibility it is, and
Right.
like giving a task.
Right, and it all goes down to Mud Creek. So ultimately, it's a Mud Creek problem, as we've heard, that's something we're all actively taking a look at in other areas, but ultimately, it's a tributary to Mud Creek, so that's probably the first action.
And so do you think, and there again, it's not with regard to this project per se, but is that something the town's looking at, getting done and getting isolated and tasking you with? And
I have not been tasked with that yet. Rick and I have talked about it, obviously since this has been an issue, about taking a look at it. I don't necessarily think that it will get the water out faster. He's still gonna get water, these residents are still gonna get water that come across that road though. It's not gonna stop that, to a degree. You can get it out a little quicker, but there's still a problem with the water that's coming to that one point on Middle Southern.
there's too much coming down all at one time?
Right.
So you're saying that there's more water in those back lawns that can't be redirected, so it's gonna be a continuing problem?
To some degree, if you put a bigger culvert in there, say a big box culvert, you would obviously have more water go through that box culvert and it wouldn't go over the road. Right.
And you've got an open culvert down the back there.
Correct.
But it's also a reality of the fact that a lot of the development that went on was pre-secret development, so there was no anything regarding stormwater management. It was just pipe it and send it down.
Well, and if you
And so that's the water that we're talking about that's coming across a very large area.
Absolutely.
Which has got us very far afield from this particular development.
Well, in a storm like the June storm, that's a tough one, because that's one that happened when the groundwater was already saturated. There was no soak in the ground at all. We call that incidental moisture content. That was 100% soaked. Any rain that fell washed right off. That's flash flooding. So you start right down at Mud Creek, and if Mud Creek's already filled and backed up, it's already pushing that water back up that drainage swale, and now you get a storm like that, there's really no ways to go, even if you did clean it out. That's for another day.
But getting back to this current site and Secra, and what they've done regarding the water flows, they've met the law.
They've actually exceeded what we asked them to do.
So
because
they meet
were
the
not
law
required
for
to put
town
in a-
subdivision rules and regulations. They meet the law on Secra.
Correct.
Yes, Joe?
Alice, it should also be noted that in the June storms, and Rob can confirm this or deny it, I don't think his system was completely up and running at that point in time. So whatever detainage he's accomplishing on that site wasn't there to help in June.
It wasn't done until end of August. So, and now we're taking one of the pipes that, there was 2 pipes that kind of passed through. We're actually taking one of those pipes, putting it into our culvert and slowing it down as it works its way to get to the detention pond to help slow that whole thing down. So that will definitely help a tremendous amount as well. Plus the detention pond, I believe, is 2 times the size of what is necessary. It's 1.5. 1.5 times more than required for that, which is the people who own the lots are not happy with that because their backyard. But this is all to help. You know, that we knew there was, you know, let's do something.
Anything else, Heather?
Nope, I'm all set, thanks.
Anything from other board members? Is someone inclined to make a motion one way or the other regarding this?
I'll make the motion.
Which would be,
I make the motion based on what we've heard from our engineer, that they need the letter of the law, the impact, there will be no impact, that we accept.
I'll second.
is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
I have to abstain, but just to change that, it's not that there will be no impact, there will be no increased impact, because you still have the upstream conditions in 200 acres.
Good point,
drainage
yep.
The flow. Bill? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
I abstain.
Julius abstains. Thank you. I would like these comments, though, to go to the town board. Herb, you've heard all this. Rick, you've
I will-
heard all this.
I will look into BOCES and being private property and see what we can do there. The wetlands, as you heard from Chris, we can't touch the wetlands.
Yeah, I understand all that, but we
But,
do have infrastructure in there that's not either being maintained by
It's not
somebody
being-
that should
right.
be looked at. We have a GIS that's supposed to be at least
Right.
looking at this. I don't know if we have to reconvene
I-
the stormwater committee again.
And that's been, it's been discussed, and I didn't comment when you asked earlier, but it's been discussed and getting that back up and running. I mean, at the very minimum, we need to look at that area. We need something to look at that area before other development goes in upstream of this and say, what are the effects? What can be done? Is it just a maintenance cleaning thing, or is it really a structural size thing?
Well, with that GEIS sitting out there, we cannot stop somebody. We can't throw a moratorium on the area.
But we'll know what type of requirements.
Regarding an unconstitutional taking of the property. So these things you guys, Rick,
But I have also other areas that were private, have gone to those people and explained to them that it needs maintenance, and they've taken the action and done it. So,
I mean, I've heard, what's the controversial area that's going in there now, there's the bus garage.
No,
You know,
Hartford.
if that does happen, that's upstream.
Hasn't even been.
well, hopefully
You know,
there'll
I mean,
be a lot more
obviously, it's
discussion
not
about
final
that
yet, but-
bus garage, though.
I don't think that's
I hope not.
I don't know, I mean, but I mean, that's something that could go through without, you know, really addressing the problem.
I would like us to at least communicate with what town of Whitestown, and because certainly at least the trail part.
Well, we're off in the whole town board matter area, not our area, so.
Yeah, sorry, I got off on a
Sending this
tangent.
all over to these two gentlemen.
We'll
who
talk
can
to the
carry
town
it
board
along
about
with the
it.
town attorney, the town board. And with that, we're adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Alan, I was disappointed you didn't make the motion.